Hello, I'm Mark, and welcome back to part 3 of my Unreal Engine tutorial on how to make a scalable camera-based interaction system for your Unreal Engine games. So this is our final part of the series, and we will be pulling all of those components that we made in parts 1 and 2 together to bring our interaction system to life. So let's get started. As always, let's do a quick little recap of what we did in part 1 and 2. So first off, we created our interaction data, which is structure, which acts as our data transfer object, and it will be transferring data from the actor that we're looking at, the actor which we wish to interact with, all the way through our core player interaction component, which resides on our character, and it will output that data into the core interaction widget. And that's our custom widget that we built in part 2. Next, we went ahead and created two interfaces. The first interface will be residing on any actor that we wish to make an interactive actor, and this can actually reside on both on actors, pawns, or other characters that we wish to interact with, and that's why we made it an interface. So that's what we were looking at here. And then the second interface we created is a utility interface, which will be residing on our player character, and this will allow us to kind of decouple our character class from any components which are going to be needing information off our character class. Then we also touched base on the build.cs, since we are going to be creating a custom user widget for our interaction display. We also needed to add the UMG Slate and Slate core dependencies to the build process. And then once we did that, we went ahead and created our custom user widget right here. And this will be the widget that's going to be displaying the kind of things that we can do and any additional information that we have on the object that we're looking at. And then finally, in part 1, we created the actual core player interaction component. And this is the component that will be residing on the player character. And this will be going out, testing what the camera is looking at and seeing if it has that core interactable interface on it, and to show us what we can do with it. So that was it for part 1. Part 2 was everything about widgets. So the first thing we went ahead and did was create this table structure, since we're going to be using a table to allow us to customize those input fee or those edit labels for how we want to our player to interact with the thing that we're interacting with. So that's that. Then after we created this, we went over to the Unreal Editor and we went to the UI. First off, we created a quick little HUD, and all it is just a pixel in the center of the screen so that we know where the center of the camera is and what it's looking at. We then went ahead and created our widget interaction strings. So again, this will allow us to customize the hold and the tap actions, or if it's both actions. So we created that. And then after we created that, we went ahead and created our default interactions sub-widget, and then we created a pickup items version of that sub-widget. And then from there, we went ahead and built our interactions widget, which is the widget that is going to be used by our interactions component. And again, we'll be tying that all together today in part 3. And that is using our core interactions user widget class right up here. And then finally, as a little bonus, I showed you how you could, since this table is not being referenced from C++, we could go ahead and just make this table using blueprints. And so I showed you how to do that in part 2, you know, creating a blueprint enumerator and then a blueprint structure. So, okay, so that is it for parts 1 and 2. So let's get started with part 3, which is pulling this all together. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create our interaction actor. So to do that, I'm going to come to classes, I'm going to go to core, and I'm going to go to public. And I'm going to right click and going to say new class. And I'm just going to go ahead and create a new actor class. And then I'm going to hit next. And then we're going to give this actor class a name. And I already have one picked out. So I'm going to call it interactive actor. I like to use when I'm creating classes, use a suffix which kind of tells you what it's being derived from. So this is interactive actor. It's being derived from the actor. And then I'm going to say create class. And let Unreal Engine go ahead and create that class for us. Yeah, it's taking a little bit of time today. And it's compiling. Hopefully we'll get a good compile. And we have a good compile. Great, wonderful. All right, so let's go over and see what Unreal Engine created for us. So I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to say reload all, so it adds it to the tree. All right, so what we have here, we'll keep that up for now. So this is the boilerplate of what an actor is. So we need to turn this into an interactable actor. And so to do that, all we're going to do is we're just going to add our core interactions interface. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go ahead and create a reference to it. So this is our core interactable. And that's this guy over here. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the interface, or tell the class to inherit from that interface. So to do that, I'm going to put a comma after the actor, and then we're just going to add the interface there. So I'm just going to do that. There it is. So comma, public, iCore interactable. Now that this is an iCore interactable, using iCore interactable, we need to add the methods that are on iCore interactable. So I'm just going to copy them and add them to public. So the interface is just a definition. This is going to be the implementation. And so as part of the when we create the definition, we are using this equals 0, which pretty much says this is virtual, and we're not to use this. So whenever we're calling it, whenever we're actually going to use that, if it's a virtual, we're going to go ahead and run the override key here, keyword here, and this will tell it, the compiler to override and say use this, and don't pay any attention to the interface. All right, so once we have that, that will satisfy the interface, but we need some other information on here too. So the first thing I'm going to add, and I like to put my properties above my functions, so I'm just going to do that there. So first thing I'm going to add is the interaction data. So again, this is now residing on the interactable actor, and then when we look at it, this will be passed back by the show look at actor to our component, and the show look at actor component will then pass it to the widget and then tell the widget to show me what I'm looking at. So that's the data structure. This is our data transfer object, and it's residing on the actor. Next, I'm going to go and add 3 native functions. So Blueprint native, we discussed this in part 2, where we use Blueprint natives within the core interaction widgets right here. So as you can see, we've got a couple here. We're going to be using more of them here. And this is just a nice way for me to execute code. I don't have to execute it all in C++. We can create a lightweight class like we're doing here, and then execute it in script. And so that's what we're going to be doing. So as you can see, show look at maps to show look at, interact with tap, tap, hold, and hold. And so we'll go ahead and fill this out. So first off, I'm going to go ahead and just fix this. So when using natives, you don't need to add, you don't want to add the implementation here. You only want to add the implementation here. And yes, you do need to have this second function, which is the same name as this, but with an underscore implementation for the compiler to be happy. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go ahead and do that. We don't need them, so I'm just going to hit save and minimize. We're not doing anything on begin play here, and we're not doing anything on the constructor here, and we're not going to be doing anything on tick. Everything will be done in script. Hit save. So once that's done, again, keep those green squigglies there. You'll be okay. If you're using Visual Studio, of course. And let's go ahead and define what we have here in the show look at data. So I'm going to go show potential fix and go ahead and fix that. And so this is what's going to be coming back every time we look at something. So to do that, I'm going to hit Control. All right. So here it's just going to be, we're just going to, when this gets called, we're just going to call this event, which is the event that's tied to the native event. And I'm just going to go ahead and return our data transfer objects, since that's what we need to say what we're looking at. And next, we're going to do try interaction blueprint tap. So I'm just going to hover over that, show potential fix. And all I'm going to do for now is, for this tutorial, is just go ahead and add these. And again, this is the interact with tap native event. And this is just going to say, if this is called, keep the, tell it to display the widget. And that's all we need for this one. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. And I'm going to do the same thing, but the only difference is I'm going to then do the withhold. And all we're doing is we're taking this reference of a player character, which is our character, and then passing it back. That way, if there are certain things, and we will demonstrate this when we go and play with the physics handler as our bonus to this series, and show you how that works. All right, so that is the interactive actor all done. I'm just going to double check, make sure I'm not missing anything. Got that, we've got the interface, data transfer, events, everything looks good. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and build this, make sure we don't have any compiler errors. All right, good. All right, so now that we've got that, let's move over to the character class and go ahead and build that out. So Unreal Engine, when it created this project, created a character class for us. So here it is. This is our character class that we're currently using within our project. And as you can see, we need to add a couple of, so let's go ahead and add some things to this. The first thing I'm going to do is we're going to add that utilities interface to the project. So to do that, actually, while I'm up here, I'm going to go ahead and add both of those includes, because we're going to need a reference to the component as well. So I'm just going to go copy. So first off, let's make sure we have our includes. So this is the public core interactions component, and this is the one which is going to be for, this is the component, and that's the interface. So let's go ahead and put the interface on here. I'm just going to put a comma, and that comma is going to be using this interface. I'm just going to go copy and paste it from the other solution. All right, so there it is. So now we've told the compiler that this class is also going to inheriting from a character class, but it's also going to be inheriting from iCore character interactions interface as well. All right, next, let's go ahead. Now for this, we are going to have our own input action, which is going to be on the E key. And as you can see, I actually have it already here. So, all right, so here, this is our input action. This is our input action on the E key. And as you can see, and all we're doing is we're just saying, actually, I'll just go ahead and remove this real quick and bring it in again. So all it is I'm just took this and then just changed the name. So this is going to create a new mapping so that we can create that E key action. And then after that, I'm just going to copy both of these. We have a reference to our core component and our physics handler. So I could technically add this component and physics handler within the blueprint. But since I'm going to be using the input action and I'm going to just tie it all into C++, I'm just going to go ahead and do it here. And so when we compile it and open up the blueprint, these two components will be already there, for waiting for us to be used. Alrighty. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add two methods. I'm going to call this try interact with hold and then I'm going to have try interaction on tap. And these are two functions, methods that are going to be used by the interactions, the interaction action. Right, we're going to be up there, and we'll map this to the trigger and the cancel to create our tap and hold. And then finally, since we have an interface on here, we need to define our two interfaces. So the first one is going to be our virtual collision parameters. And then the second one, and since this one's going to be working in blueprints, I'm just going to add a function blueprint pure on top of it. And then this is our physics handler. So this will return the physics handler that this character is using, and this will return any character parameters that we wish to ignore when we do our line trace back to the collision component, to the actor component here. All right, so let's go ahead, now that we've created the definition, let's go ahead and do the implementation. So to start off with, I'm just going to go to the constructor, and we'll just say go to definition. So as you can see, Unreal Engine's created a whole bunch of boilerplate for us in setting up the character, to set up its character class. So we just need to add a couple of things on the bottom to set up our systems, to our component systems. So I'm just going to go bring those over. And so here's our interaction system. So the way this is working is this is our interaction system that we want to create, and the constructor is going to do it. So we're going to use this create default subject or default sub object of type, and this is the type that we want to create to put into there. And then we just need to give it a name label. And this will get created on Unreal Engine's memory table, and it will pass back the pointer to this component. And again, the same thing for the physics handler. So that's all we need to do for our two components here, and we will make any configuration changes in the blueprint once we've finished here. We don't need to do anything within the notify controller change, but this is where it's going and setting up that default mapping context when you're doing it in C++. And then we need to add our inputs mappings. So to do our input mappings, I'm just going to bring this over and make some changes there. So I'm just going to bring this over from the other project. And do that and do that. All right, so as you can see, so this is mapping. So for the jump key, when we want to jump on spacebar, on start it'll jump, on complete it'll stop jump. And then here, this is movement, this is set to trigger. There's our move function that we looked at, and that's defined here. And then there's the look for the camera on the mouse action right here. Again, trigger. So for our input actions, I'm going to be using triggered and cancelled. And so triggered will be running the hold function if the trigger is successful, and if the trigger is not successful, it gets cancelled before it's being able to, before we've held it for 1 second, it will then run instead the tap instead. And that's how I'm going to be doing the hold versus tap event on the E key. All right, and so that's all we need to do there. And that's, again, pointing to the interaction action that we defined right there. All right, so we don't need to do anything on move, but if you're interested, that's how you set up the move code in C++. And same for look. So I'm just going to minimize those two. All right, so let's go ahead and define our try interact with hold and try interact with tap. So to do that, I'm just going to hover over, show potential fix. And I'm just going to go ahead and do it again for the other one. Alrighty. So this one's so the hold key is really simple. I'm just going to go ahead, and all it is it's just going to say interaction system try event. Try interact with, and then I'm going to set that to true. So that's the interaction system. We're using a pointer reference since this is a class and not a struct. We have to use the line dash, and then we use the try interact with true. So for the physics handler, well, actually, for the try interact with tap key, we'll do the same thing. I'm just going to go ahead and just copy this. And just show you how that works. Again, that's a pointer. And then I'm just going to say try interact with, which is the function. And this is now false. And there it is. And that's how you do it if you want to type it out. And so that's tap, that's hold, and that's map to hold. These are just wrapper functions so that we can run it within the input action. And so one final thing, and I'm just going to go ahead, we'll type it out. I need to have a way so that if I'm holding an object, I can release it with the physics handler. Now, I could put this on the actual thing that I'm looking at, but if for some reason, and depending on how close or far away my camera is, that I'm no longer looking at the object, then if I want to try and release it, it won't work because I'm not looking at it. And that might not be an ideal, way that you might, your player might want to interact with the object. So if you have an edge case like this, and I'm going to call it an edge case, I can also put when we run the tap, regardless of whether we're looking at it or not, we're just going to go ahead and drop the object. So to do that, I'm just going to say if VHY physics. There's our physics handle. And then we're going to say get grab components. So this is going to go ahead and tell us null pointer. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a quick, so on this, if I tap this key, we're going to first check to see if the physics handler actually has anything. If it doesn't have anything, we'll just go on to interaction system here. If it does have something, we'll just go ahead and tell it to release it. And this is the release components. And then I'm just going to tell it to return. So pretty much if we're holding something, we're going to release it. And then if we want to then interact with something else, we'll go ahead and interact with something else. And that's just how this code's going to work. If you want something different, then you can make whatever changes you need to make here. All right, so that will do it for the interaction component. So then the last thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and implement the two interface functions since we're now overriding them here. So I'm going to say show potential fix. So this is a utility function to help with tracing, to say ignore if the trace algorithm was to hit our character, then it will ignore everything that is on that. If any actors that are attached to our character, we're going to tell it to ignore. So to do that, I'm just going to bring this all in, and we'll show you how this works. Actually, yeah, let's just bring it all in. It's a hefty chunk of code. So again, we're going to create a structure, which is the collisions query parameters structure. Then we're going to create an array of type actor pointers. So it's very important that you have the star there. And that's going to be our character children. And then what we'll do is we'll call this get all child actors, which is a part of the a character class. And that will then go ahead and it will find all of the character children and populate this array with all of that. Then on parameters, which is defined here, we have this add, ignore, and we're using here because this is a structure, not a class. We can use a dot instead of the dash arrow because this is a variable and not a pointer. Add, ignore actors, and we want to use the actors to be able to pass that array in. And then the second one is add, ignore actor, and I'm passing this pointer. So these are all the children, but we also want this trace to ignore us as well. And then we just pass that whole structure back so that it can be used by the So it can be used by our trace algorithm, which is over here in interaction tracing. So I'll just go ahead and pop this up right there. So ioning characters, there it is, and it's being used there to do the test. So, all right, we'll just close that. We'll come back. All right, so that's that for that. So let's go ahead and get the physics, fix this one, which is our physics handler. And this is really easy. This is just going to be the physics handle. I'm just going to go with that. And this is going to be used by the interactive actor, or test actor, that we're going to be creating. All right, so that's everything, I think. Just double check to make sure we're not missing anything. All right, I think that's it. So I'm just going to hit save one more time. I'm going to come back to our Unreal Engine and let's go ahead and recompile, and hopefully we'll get a good compile. All right, we got a good compile. So let's go ahead and, so everything else is just going to be in the editor now. So let's start with our setting up our character class. And for that, I'm actually going to start with our inputs. So we have we're going to create a new enhanced input for our E key. And so to do that, we're going to come to content drawer here. We're going to go to third party, and under third party, we're going to go to input. And then we're going to go to actions, and then we're going to add our own custom action. So to do that, we're going to right click, and we're just going to come to input, input action, and I'm going to say IA underscore interaction. I'm going to then click to open it, hit save. All right, so this is going to be our interaction action, and for this, we're just going to go ahead and, so what we want here is I want to tap a hold action. So to do this, I'm going to come down to the triggers right here, and I'm going to add a custom trigger. And then on the trigger, I'm going to go and convert it to a hold. So what this, and then I'm going to expand on the hold. So this is going to be, I'm going to hold the button down, and then I'm going to wait 1 second. And after 1 second, then the trigger will fire. Now, since I only want this to, I want this to act as a press, right? And then after 1 second, I want it to only fire, but fire once. I'm then going to also add the is one shot. So by doing, so if I don't have this, after 1 second, it will keep firing the trigger, which means that it will continue to keep trying to interact. And that might be a desired effect, say if you've got a gun or you're trying to shoot something where you want that trigger to keep firing, boom, 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 boom. But here I only want it to act on a delay of 1 second, so we're just going to go ahead and set this to hold 1 second and then one shot. And that's it for setting up our interaction input. So next, we're going to come up the tree, back up to input, and we're going to go to our defaults package here, and this will set up our mappings. So to do that, I'm going to come to mappings, we're going to go to the plus key, hit none, and then find our interaction, and then I'm going to expand that, expand it. We don't need to do anything on the triggers since we've defined that actually on the input mapping. So now we just need to say which key we want to use. So I'm going to click on the little keyboard and I'm going to say E. And this is just a fast way for us to do a key binding. If you're looking for input controls on other things, like say, you know, a gamepad, right, or an Xbox One, global menu, things like that, right, you can then pick and then assign it that way. But since we're just using the keyboard, I'm just going to go keyboard and then E key. And that is it. So we've created the action, we've mapped the action, so now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and map that action to our player character. So let's go up to the blueprints and let's open up our character blueprint. So here's our character blueprint, and as you can see, after we recompiled, we now have our interaction system and we also have our physics handle right here. So let's go ahead and set up our character so that we can use the system. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to interaction system. I'm going to go to 300. So we defaulted it to 6, but for this I'm just going to go to 300. I think 300 is a little bit shorter, it looks a little bit more natural. And I'm going to say compile and save. And then we need our display message widget, so that's under widget. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say WB, and here is WB interaction widget, and I'm going to hit save there. So that kind of if we come back to our component here, in part 2 we had to create this class here. So that's what we're working on when we go ahead and do in the blueprint. We say here's the widget. It's just going to be mapped to here, and then once that's mapped to there, it's just a user widget. Then from there we can then actually create the actual concrete widget on begin play and take whatever's in here and just cast that into here, into the widget, and everything else will run off that widget. So that's how that's working. Let's come back. Alright, so once we have that, we don't need the tick or the actor begin overlap, so I'm going to just remove that. And let's go ahead and add the HUD. So on begin play, I'm just going to say create widget. So we're going to create that widget, and this is going to be using WB HUD, and there it is, WB HUD. And very easy, simple, we're just going to say add to viewports. There it is. Alright, so that's all we need to do there. So then the next thing is we need to allow the interaction system to properly calculate the distance in front of the character that it needs to be. So we're going to drag our interaction system off, and I'm going to say set arm distance. So we're going to do that there. And I'm going to park you there, and then I'm going to come to, here's the camera boom. I'm going to drag you off, and off the boom, let's take the get target arm length. So that's the length of the boom, and that's all we need to do there. So since our camera boom is fixed and it doesn't move, we can just do this on begin play. But if you had a input which would move the camera in or move the camera out, then you would want to then call this after you've made the movement each time, just so that we can recalculate the distance, so we can keep that that 300 now units in front of the character for our distance. So let's go ahead and do that. And that is all we need to do as far as in the blueprint for the character. Everything else is just going to be configuration, is data configuration. So now that we've got that, we need to go and hook up our inputs. So we created that input over here, and it's part of the package here. So now we just need to add it to the class. So I'm just going to come up here, and under search, I'm going to say inputs. And as you can see, here's the jump, move, and look action. We're just going to go and add the interaction, and that's all we need to do there. Physics handler, I'm just going to clear that out. So we don't need to make any changes here for this tutorial, so we'll leave all that there. And the only thing I want to change is our camera. So if we come onto the viewport, you can see right now this camera is center and going into the middle of our character. I kind of want to put it up at shoulder height and kind of offset it. So to do that, I'm going to move this up. I'm going to change the Z key on the location to 60. So that brings us up. And then I'm going to do an offset on the socket, since the boom is attached to the socket. And that is going to be of 40. So that now turns the moves the camera 40 off the axis. It's still facing forward, but now we're going to have that we'll have that effect of looking over our character's shoulder. So let's just test that out real quick. There it is. So as you can see, there's the white marker, and it's looking over our character. And so wherever our white marker is, that's where our character is going to be going. And that's where our character is going to be looking, or the camera is looking. Alright, so that looks good. So now that we've set that up, let's go ahead and create our interactive actor. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and create the actor here. So I'm going to go right click, I'm going to go to blueprints, and instead of using an well, I could use an actor, but that could cause, but instead I'm going to go ahead and use the, actually let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to create a BP chair. This is on an actor. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just create our targets. So in the viewport, under default, I'm going to do two things. First I'm going to add a decal. No, I want to go add and then say decal. There it is. And I'm just going to use this for underneath the chair. So on the decal, I'm just going to go ahead and set this to decal size. By 2. So that gives us a flat decal on the bottom of the chair, and I'm not going to do anything really with the decal. I'm just using this to kind of show where the actor is in relationship to the chair when we move it. So next I'm going to go ahead and say add, and then I'm going to add a static mesh, and I'll just leave it static mesh, and then I'm going to find the chair. So there's our chair, and that's sitting on top of the decal, on top of the actor. And we don't need to do anything else with that chair. So I'm going to then move to the event graph, and let's go set up our test actor in the event graph. So now that we're in the event graph, we're not going to do anything with begin play here or overlap. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove those. We will be using tick for the physics handle to make the chair move. So we have a little bit of an issue. So we've created this as an actor, but our actor doesn't have access to the interface, and we created a class in C++, which is the interactive actor. So, and this could be a scenario where you've got a lot of, you've created a lot of actors, you've got a lot of static objects. Now you want to take those static objects and turn them into interactables. So to do that, instead of trashing all your work and starting again, we can actually re-blueprint or re-parent this class. So as long as it's going down the inheritance chain, this should work. So this is an actor, okay, but I want to change this to an interactable actor. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come down, I'm going to go to File, and then come to Reparent Blueprint. And then in Reparent Blueprint, I'm going to find the interactive actor right here, and I'm going to click on that, and now we are reparented. I'm going to hit save, and now if I come to the event graph, I can then say event show look at data. So this is our native event that we defined in the, so now we actually have access to those native events, and the interface is also on this class. We can say event and then we have interaction with tap, and we have interaction with hold. Okay, so for this tutorial, I'm not going to do anything with the look at, but this could be where you may need to pull something off your character in order to update your data transfer object before you send it back. And so that's why this is here. But we are going to do some things with tap and hold. So untap, I'm just going to go ahead and this is where we're going to simulate putting something in. If we tap it, we're going to put it into inventory, versus if we hold, we're going to then pick it and move it around and then drop it. So I'm going to go ahead and get the interaction action or interaction data. So to do that, I'm going to say get, there it is. So there's our data transfer object. And off the data transfer object, I'm just going to go ahead and break it so we get access to what's inside. And as you can see, there's the only thing that I want off here for this, and this is, again, this is purely for demo purposes. I'm just going to go ahead and just drag this off, and I'm going to say switch. If I was to kind of create different interactions, I'd probably create unique a blueprint for each type of object, and I wouldn't need to go off this type. But because I'm going to be using this for multiple things, I'm just going to go and just use this type on here, and we'll do it that way. All right, so off there, we're just going to go ahead, and if this is a pickup item, we're going to say place. I'm going to put print string, and this is where you'd then go ahead and put it into your inventory if you had an inventory system. And then after you add it to the inventory, you're always going to then destroy it, and then that's what's going to take it off. So then we destroy the actor. And that's all we need to do if we're going to be pretending to put it into inventory. Uh-oh. Okay, so sorry for that. Apparently Unreal Engine decided to crash. It does happen. But we've got everything back up, and we'll just continue. So here we've just set up the interact with tap event going into our fictitious inventory system, so we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for the hold event. So for that, it's going to be very similar. I'm just going to go copy and paste this. And from there, we're just going to go ahead and, so now, since we want to interact with this object and we want this object to interact with our character, we need to go ahead and get that physics handler. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and cast to enter to core. So this is going to be casting to the character that is being referenced here and being pulled back. We need, since it's an A character, we need to cast it up to the core interactive character. And I'm just going to go ahead and take the C++. Since there's nothing different in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and, if it's a good cast, we will promote this to a variable. And I'm just going to call this variable the occupying character. Alright, so that's the character that's occupying the object, currently occupying the object. I'm just going to hit save before I hit compile, just in case Unreal Engine crashes again. Alright, so next, let's go ahead and reference our physics handler. So I'm going to say get where is it? Get physics. Component. So I want the actual function. It's just good practice to be pulling the function. And then after I've got the function, I'm just going to go ahead and pull off here, and then I'm going to say get grab component. And I'm going to need to run some validations on this. So on none. So hang on, and I need to move this around a little bit so we can hook this up, hook the execution path up correctly. So this is going to go here. So again, if this is defined as a pickup, we're going to do that. I'm going to grab you and I'm going to pull you out to there. Just keep it nice and clean. On none and default, we won't do anything. I'll save. Here, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure, I'm going to test to make sure that that is a valid component. So is valid. And then on top of that, I'm going to run another if it is valid, then I'm going to run another is valid to test. Actually, nope. I want the macro. There it is. There's the macro. So I'm going to run another is valid to check to see if we're currently holding anything. And here I'm going to actually run off the is not valid. So if we're not holding anything, right, we're empty, and we're trying to pick something up, we're then going to go ahead and run off the component, which is back here. We're going to say grab component at location. I'm going to put at location and rotation, even though I'm not going to fill anything in for the rotation. And that's going to go into false. The is not valid. So if I just bring that in, I will try and maximize this for you guys. Hit compile, save. All right, so that's good. And I'll just go ahead and put a reroute node, so you can see where that's coming from. So if we're not holding anything, we're going to try and hold anything. And so what are we holding? So the way that this works, actually I'm going to move that up to there and attach that to there. So the way this works, I'm going to take the static mesh and I'm going to pull it down. So that's the component on the actor that we want to move with the physics handle, right? And so now we need to have a location of where it is. So to do that, I'm going to take off the static and I'm going to say get world location. So this is the location in the world. So this isn't the location the relative location. This is the actual reference to the location that this mesh is in the world. And we're not going to do anything with rotation. So we'll leave that there. I'm going to hit that and that. All right, so that's how we can pick something up. So now we just need to move it. So to do that, we're going to run it on tick, and we're actually going to run it on tick in the context of the actor. So again, we're going to keep all of this logic on the actor. That way we don't have to have all of these different cases on how to interact on the character. Yeah, we'll keep it on the actor instead. So first off, let's go ahead and get our occupying character. And then on this, we're going to do an is valid. And then off that, we're just going to do the same thing we did down below. We're going to say get the physics component. I'm just going to go copy that, since we're going to be just rehashing the same logic. We'll just go grab that. And I'm just going to bring this down to there and clear this node off. Gonna hook that into there. All right, so first thing is, if this is valid, we have an occupying character, then we can go ahead and do this tick. I'm going to hit save and compile. And then we're going to check to make sure that we actually have a component on there. And then, you know, again, and then we're going to make sure that that grab component here. So if it's now, unlike with this, where we're checking for the opposite. So if we're not holding something, we're going to go ahead and grab it. If we are holding something, we're going to go ahead and move it. So off here, I'm going to put a branch. And I'm going to do a test. And what I'm going to be testing is whatever is here needs to equal this static mesh. So I want to make sure that these two are equal. So I'm going to say this. Use the equals key. I'm going to do that. And we're going to hook it up there. That way we want to just make sure that this static mesh is the same component in here that we're trying to move before we try and move it. All right, after that, now we can go ahead and move it, and to move it, we just have to come down here. We'll grab and say set target location. And that's going to be there. I'm just going to go ahead and just put a little reroute node, clean things up a little bit. All right, so now we got that done. Let's go ahead. What's the new location? And if this is false, let's just go ahead and I'm just going to move it up to here. I'm going to actually say, take the occupying character, set it. So pretty much we'll just clean this up on the false. So now we just need a location to move this to. So to do that, we're going to say, since this is based off the camera, we're going to say get player camera manager. So this will get the active camera that we're currently using. And from here, we will then say root component. And then off here, we're going to then say get world. Get world location. And I'm going to then put that into a plus. All right. So we're going to add the location of the camera, and then we need to go and say, find which direction it's going and push it out a little bit further. And we'll judge that by, I'm thinking I'm using, what, 350. And that's where we want the thing to be moved to on each frame. So to do that, we're then going to say get world rotation, and from there we'll get the forward vector. And then we're going to go ahead and do a multiply. So I'm just going to say, I'm just going to use star to get the multiply. And I'm going to reset this to a float. And that float is going to be 350. And we're just going to go ahead and just park that in there. And then we'll park that up there. All right. So now that we've got all of our code set up, let's go ahead and put some of these chairs into the environment and see if we can interact with them. So chairs done. So I'm just going to move this off screen real quick. All right, so let's go ahead and add some chairs. I'm just going to go and move out a little bit. And we're going to go open up the content drawer and let's pull out a chair. So I'm going to put one chair there. Let's recreate what I have in the demo. Second chair and a third chair. So those are our chairs. I'm just going to go ahead and play it. And as you can see right now, there's no interaction because we haven't finished setting up the instance configuration. So we moved the chairs in. Now we just need to go ahead and set the chairs so that they can be seen by the system. So to do that, I'm going to come up. I'm just going to move out a little bit so we can see. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. Let's just go ahead and save those. So we're going to make this the happy chair. So I'm going to come out to here, open up the chair, and under interaction, there's our interaction data. As you can see, type is none. So I'm just going to set that to default. Happy chair, and we're going to need a key. So the key is, if we come into UI interactions, that's going to be on our table here. So I'm going to go ahead and put the SIC key. I'm just going to copy this and we'll move this back out and come back to details. So our action key, this is what's going to map to our data table, and we can keep weight and value the same. So let's hit save. All right, so happy chair, display type, sit. I think that should be it. So let's go ahead and just run that little test real quick. And there it is. And of course we don't have any sitting actions, so if I just tap it, it's not going to do anything. So let's go ahead and make one of these chairs levitate. So to do that, we need to do a couple of things. So I'm going to pick that as the candidate for levitation. I'm going to say pick up items. And again, I'm going to come back to our table and I'm going to set take. That's got both tap and hold. Come back to our candidate and put that in the key. And this is going to be the Z chair. And we'll give this a weight of 10 and a value of 100. All right, so now we want this thing to move. So to do that, we have to set the physics. So so we need to come down to the collision. And let me just check my other solution real quick. So go to details, click on my chair. So under the chair, we should have physics. We don't need to do anything there. Let me just see where this is located. Up under the mesh. So we're going to come to the static mesh and we're going to come down to physics for the mesh, and we want to simulate the physics. So simulate physics is turned on. And when we simulate physics, we should have physics actor. Okay, so if I was to take this chair, and you can see the simulate physics is not on the static mesh because it's the chair that we're moving. We're not moving the actor, we're moving the chair. Here it's just block all dynamic in simulate physics, but on the chair that we're going to move, hopefully, it is there on the static mesh. Simulate physics turned on, and make sure that you've got collision preset is physics actor. So now that it's all set up, we're going to hit save, We're going to run it, and hopefully we should be able to interact with that chair. So that's the same chair over there, and this is a sad chair. And as you can see, the widget's now changed to use the pickup widget, and it's got a value and a weight with our crude little interface. And then, so if I hit the E key, whoops, there it is, and it's moving around a bit, a little bit jumpy. Gonna hit the E key again, or tap the E key, and the chair flies right over the wall. So we'll come back, yeah, we'll just run it again. We'll give it a little bit more distance on this one. So I'll hit the E key. No, it's still bouncing around, still staying a little too close. And then if I tap it, and then if I tap it again, I'll hold it. But as you can see, when I do that, the green is representing the floor or the actor location, and the physics actor that's on the point there. And what we're moving is actually the chair and not the actor, and that's the component. So let's see. I have this set up. Maybe I want to go into our actor and change that a little bit. If I go into blueprints, go back to our chair, bring in our chair code. Set location. Get player, camera, camera manager, components, world location, forward vector, world rotation, 350, multiply, add, new location. Maybe extend that just a little bit. There it is. A little too close. So just push that out. And as you can see, we're just moving the chair around. So it's not going to fly around. And then if I drop the chair, as you can see, the actor hasn't changed. Just the chair has. So, and then we can move it around. And then drop it again by just tapping the key. And then if I tap it again, it'll take it away. All right, so that does it. So thank you for watching my videos. Apologize, they are pretty long ones, these ones. And if you like what I'm doing, please feel free to like and share my videos, as well as subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye.